again, sent out the agenda, but just quickly to go over it, we are gonna do introductions. Again, there are some new folks on the committee. We'll have a quick overview of the meeting procedures, public meeting law, and the process by our PA attorney, Ben. And then I'm assuming because Senator Bray has to get off, Representative Campbell will do a quick overview of the bill language or with the committee charge. We'll talk about the committee chair nominations to have a vote at the next meeting. And then a little bit about the meetings themselves, how many, structure, etc. And hopefully can leave about 5 minutes in case there are public comments. I'm not anticipating that for this introductory meeting, but want to make sure we leave time if we can for that. So let's hop right into introductions and seeing how we're virtual. If folks want, we can just go by the list and just introduce yourself, who you're representing, and hopefully we can kind of keep it quick. So Scott, do you want to start?
Okay, sure. Representative Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury, formerly in the building industry and weatherization work and all of that. Been very interested in bringing the benefits of building science knowledge to the construction industry and figuring out ways to do that.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bray?
Sure. So Chris Bray, live in Bristol. I am Chair Senate Natural Resources and Energy. Worked last year with the same group, one of the most productive working groups I've ever been part of, to help us keep moving forward on a pathway to a comprehensive and integrative program related to, building science certification, registration, compliance, the whole 9 yards. We know it's a big transition. This past year, I introduced a bill that passed and became Act 151 that extended the working lifespan of this group. And when we get to it, I think Scott and Kelly can walk through. I'll be stepping out, but the language of that bill lays out some things to address. None of them will be a surprise to anyone in this group because they're really a continuation, pushing forward on how we left things at the last December, I think it was. So thanks for everyone for that work, and looking forward to moving the ball down the field again. Not as far as some people would like, I'm sure, but as long as we're making progress, that's the thing I'm aiming for. Sorry for the long intro, but I'll be leaving, and then maybe Kelly and Ben can fill in a little bit on what just happened to Elcar this morning, because so thank you. Eye roll. I saw that eye roll.
Well, I don't know that we have enough time, is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Senator Bray. Kelly Launder, I'm the representative for the Vermont Department of Public Service. Also with me is Keith Levinson, who is very involved in the building energy standards, particularly the residential side, and Ben Civiletti, who is going to be providing legal assistance for the department to the working group. So that's me. Mike, do you want to go next? Michael DeRocha.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, are you guys seeing the list of the members?
Yeah, they're not.
Okay.
They're not in order, kind of, I guess.
Okay.
But whatever. I'm Mike DeRocha, the executive director for the Division of Fire Safety. I know many of you here, and I'll be working with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Matt? Sharp?
Hi there. Sorry, I do not see the list. So thanks for calling me out.
Presentation's not showing then.
Matt Sharp.
The agenda.
I'm with Efficiency Vermont, and I'm happy to be with this group again after last summer. more excited about number 1 of 3 because I think that's where we have really the ability to make a lot of progress. And numbers 2 and 3, I think, is where the group starts to diverge and might be a little harder to get through that. But great progress on number 1, I'm anticipating and looking forward to.
Thanks, Matt. Matt Bushy's next. You on?
Sure. Okay. Hello, I'm Matt Bushy. I'm an architect with Truex Collins, principal here in Burlington. I'm representing AIA Vermont. I'm new to this group, although I am familiar with the work from last year. Bob Duncan was AIA Vermont's representative last year with this group. He couldn't continue, but I was one of a couple of folks who worked kind of to support him through the process. So I was involved in, submitting comments from AI Vermont, et cetera. So I'm familiar with the report that was produced, and I'm a past president of AI Vermont and on the board of directors there. So I'm connected to others as well, and looking forward to jumping in this year. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Are you guys seeing the intro slide now? Or no?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on. I have 3 different PowerPoint presentations on my screen right now, so I'm not sure which one is right. Jim Bradley.
Yes, Jim Bradley. I'm representative of Vermont Builders Association, or Remodelers Association, excuse me, Builders and Remodelers Association, and also a builder and developer for Hayward Design Build. And also on my own, I'm with Authenticated Diagnostics, an energy auditor and a HERS rater, and excited to see what might come out of this group to further RBES along in a more constructive way for Vermonters and builders. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Chris Burns.
Good afternoon. Good to see everybody again. Chris Burns, Burlington Electric Department. 2 things for us. As an appointed EEU, RBES and CBES serve as our baseline for our energy savings claims and new construction. And as part of the municipal government structure, we provide technical assistance to Burlington's Department of Permitting and Inspections, who has a trades division for building, mechanical, plumbing, and electrical.
Thanks, Chris. Is Tim on, or I saw Karen Horn get on. Karen, are you representing Tim?
We're both here today, Kelly.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks. Go ahead, Tim.
Greetings, everybody. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces here. I'm Tim Perrin. I manage our energy efficiency programs here at Vermont Gas Systems. Also joined by Karen Horn, who's our regulatory manager. Depending on the cadence and the timeline for some of the meetings, it'll either be Karen or me representing VGS as part of some of this conversation, but we look forward to participating.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Matt Musgrave. Matt on? No? Okay. I don't think Ted Brady was going to make it, but there was someone that was going to be on his place. So are you there?
Yes. Hi, this is Josh Hanford from Vermont League of Cities and Towns, filling in for Ted Brady today. It seems to be conference and board retreat season, so you'll most likely see Ted in the future. I know he was on last year, but I'll probably fill in here and there, and glad to be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Chris Campany.
Hi, Chris Campen. I'm Executive Director of the Wyndham Regional Commission in Southeast Vermont and representing the RPCs. The main thing I keep trying to engage with here is just keep an eye out for like what does this mean for regional entities and municipalities along with BLCT. And for folk who don't know my prior background, when I was Deputy Director of Planning and Zoning for Calvert County, Maryland, inspections and permits was under me. So I've got experience with the permitting and inspection process for residential, multifamily, commercial, industrial, governmental, all that good stuff. So was actually responsible for overseeing this kind of thing.
Thanks, Chris. Craig Peltier couldn't be here, but I think there's someone else from VHCB.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. My name's Elise Greaves, and I work with VHCB, and I will just be sitting in for Craig today. He's out of office, but we'll be back for future meetings.
Thank you. I'm not sure Jennifer was going to be able to make it, Colin from OPR.
Yep,
Is there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm Jen Colin. I'm general counsel for OPR. Lauren Lehman was our previous general counsel. She was probably on this in this work group before, but she's with the Vermont Department of Health now. So happy to be in the group.
Great. Welcome, Jennifer. Actually, OPR was not on the working group last summer, but we are
Okay.
happy to have you here. And we
Great.
did have a presentation from OPR, so thank you. And I don't think Peter Tucker was going to be able to make it from VAR. Is Peter here? Okay. All right. Assuming not. Is the meeting procedures and process on your screen now?
The agenda is.
The agenda, yeah.
Do we want to, Kelly, do we want to,
There we go.
Yes.
have other
Yes.
people introduce themselves, or are we just going to wait on that?
I'm sorry?
Do we want to have other people who are attending introduce themselves, or are we going to wait on that?
I wasn't going to do that given time, but Keith was going to take down names of attendees.
Thank you.
Unless
Okay.
you want to go through, I don't know how many people are on the line, if there's a lot or a little.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
fair number of other people.
Okay.
Right.
I think if we can just, Keith can just take names down, and then when, hopefully we'll have time for public comments if those folks want to chime in. Does that work?
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right, Ben, meeting procedures and process.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I think I know most of you now. Ben Civiletti, Special Counsel for the department. I will be assisting you all to the best of my ability in matters of sort of process, open meeting law, and the like, other legal questions that might come up. A lot of this will be review, and I think I just want to hit the high points. Really, when you talk about open meeting law, the idea is that members of the public should have access to and the ability to participate in meetings of public bodies, of which this group is one. There was a new law passed this year regarding open meeting law, which designates something called an advisory body, which is essentially, I think, what this group is. It's a group that is working in an advisory capacity, but doesn't have specific jurisdiction over some aspect of sort of the government or the laws, things like that. So what that means really with the new law is just that there's no requirement for an advisory body to have in-person meetings. We can have remote meetings. However, I think upon request from a member of the public, we would need to try to facilitate a place for an in-person person to attend in person. So that's something that could come up. But that's really the extent of that, I believe, new law as it relates to us. The rest of the open meeting requirements relate to making sure that there's appropriate public notice and ability to participate for members of the public. And we can go into the details of that, if it comes up. But for the committee members or the working group members' information, I think the important thing is to note that when you have a quorum of members, that is a majority, that's when a meeting sort of starts. So if you're discussing substantive issues relating to the working group's charges, and you have a quorum, then you're having a meeting under open meeting law, and that's when you should be making sure that the public is able to attend and participate. So the only reason that can get a little sticky is if you hit reply all to a group email with the whole committee or the whole working group, and you want to discuss substantive issues. If you do that, you might be in danger of violating open meeting law because the public's not aware of the discussion, they're not able to attend. So you want to be careful about group emails. Things like agenda setting, other administrative issues, who can make it to the next meeting, what the agenda is, that's all fine. But when you're actually discussing the work is when you want to make sure that's done at a meeting. If you're trying to speak with a majority of
the members. There should always be opportunity for public comments during a meeting. You know, the time provided can vary depending on how many folks attend, and that can be sort of handled by the chair just to make sure that there's a reasonable opportunity to speak. Meetings will be recorded and provided to the public as well, so that's important to note. And as far as the process goes, it is sort of you know, typically handled like in a way like a legislative hearing. The chair will recognize folks to speak, and issues can be discussed according to the agenda, et cetera. And we can get into the details of that more as needed if as we go along. But that's kind of the overview of open meeting law. And if there are any questions, happy to take those.
All right. The other piece I had on here was the meeting process. Last time we kind of conducted similar to a legislative hearing, that people raised their hand to speak and the chair recognized the person, you know, who wanted to speak. Public can speak during the public comment section of the agenda. And again, like we said earlier, we will be recording all the meetings and putting them online. Right. Okay, let's see if we advance again. And are we on, see, everyone's seeing overview of bill language?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
All right, Scott, gonna take it away?
All right, sure. The mic is on, yes, okay. Well, the what's on the screen right now is the powers and duties listed in the bill. This is Act 151 from this past year. And those are, I guess I'll just read them, they're pretty short. To recommend strategies and programs to increase awareness of and compliance with the RBES and CBES, including the use of appropriate certifications for contractors trained on the energy codes. That's the first one. The second one is develop plans and recommendations for a potential transition to a comprehensive program for the RBES and CBES at the Division of Fire Safety, including potential funding sources. And three, consider whether or not the state should adopt a statewide building code. So that's the outline, the very skeletal outline of what we're about here. I think that it's from my point of view, what I'm hoping we're going to do here is build on the work that we did last year in the study committee that most of you were on, and we actually got through a great deal of work. We had 10 meetings and produced a pretty comprehensive report about the steps, well, the potential steps towards increasing energy code compliance through various mechanisms, including making the Division of Fire Safety what's called the authority having jurisdiction that is referred to in the energy codes. So that's sort of what I'm thinking of as our charge. As I was thinking about this meeting, I was thinking that really what we ought to do between now and the next meeting is, well, I think that the department, I think Kelly and Keith are going to come up with a proposed work plan. And I think each of us should think about what we think is the pathway to a more rigorous, well, first of all, what is the appropriate level of regulation for the building industry, and what is the pathway to getting there? So that's, I was going to sort of wait until the end for that, but I think that's, in my view, what the charge of the committee is. Anybody have any thoughts to add to that? I'm not seeing anything. Kelly, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think, like you said, hopefully we won't retread what we discussed before. We'll, I guess, are you seeing the next slide on the meetings and the report?
Yep.
So obviously with a report being due on November 15th, the date of the report has been bumped up pretty considerably. So there's not a lot of time between now and then. So just want to point that out.
And it's also important to mention that this is a 2-year working group. So this report that we're doing for November 15th is not the final work product. And I hope that the work product, I guess I should add that I hope the work product will include some recommendations for concrete actions, perhaps legislative actions to further the process. Anybody have any other thoughts? Should we go on?
I mean, go forward.
The only question, Representative Campbell, I may have is the fact of, are we limited to that framework, or will we be able to, because the need presents itself? Because one thing that happened in the study group last year was other issues came up that I think were very germane to our discussion. Will we have that kind of latitude in this committee to not digress into, the weeds, if you will, but more so to say, hey, this becomes an important aspect too that we need to consider? Are we going to have that kind of latitude?
I expect so. I think the powers and duties as listed in the Act are pretty broad and allow for just what do we need to do to increase awareness and compliance with RBES, and that could include a training program, that could include a certification program, that could include recommendations around adopting a residential building code. I look forward to hearing from Mike DeRocher about how things are going with the work that they're doing on the building code right now. So yeah, I think there's pretty broad latitude. Yeah, Jim.
Okay, thank you. And the one follow-up is we did speak earlier about the fact that it's RBES, but it's also apparently CBES, and I wasn't aware that we had that part of the charter. So could you extrapolate a little bit of what our role would be in the CBES part of this?
Well, I think CBES was included just because it's part of the energy code, the overall energy code, sort of writ large. CBES compliance is pretty good because most commercial projects have an architect involved, and architects are required to follow code at risk of losing their license if they don't. So that's there's already sort of a compliance mechanism in place for that. It's really the residential side that we're more really trying to address, I think.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying.
All right, anybody else? All right, Kelly, you want to carry on?
Okay. Next one. I think we are to the committee chair nominations.
Some of you may have seen Senator Bray's comment in the chat. Oh, I see there's another chat up here too. About suggesting that maybe he and I could be co-chairs. I'd certainly be willing to do that. He has another job. My other job is a volunteer job also, so sort of like being in the legislature. So I'm more available than he is. So I'm willing certainly to undertake that role if that is amenable to the group.
I would move Representative Campbell that we consider that Representative Campbell and also Senator Bray become co-chairs of this group.
All right,
Okay, any other further discussion or any other nominations? We're gonna vote at the next meeting when hopefully we'll have the full committee, but is there any further discussion or any raising of the hands or nominations? All right, hearing none, go.
Looks like Chris.
I'm not arguing, I just, why do we need to wait?
Um,
I'm just asking.
well, we didn't notice it as a vote,
Got it, okay.
so we just noticed it as a nomination. So I think we probably should wait. Does that make sense? And we can vote at the very beginning of the meeting?
Makes
Okay.
sense to
Yeah,
me.
like I said, wasn't pushing back, just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Not warning, it makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're just whipping through these agenda items. We might have I'm not gonna say it because I always jinx myself if I say we might end the meeting early, then it goes long. So I'm not even gonna say.
Oh, the next topic about when the meetings are going to be, that should be a good one.
Now's a chance for everyone to chime in. So, first of all, we want to talk about how many meetings should we hold before November 15th when the report is due. The PSD is proposing once a month through November with 2 in October to, try to finalize the report. So 5 meetings in total. But open to what others think on that item of how many meetings to hold. If others want to chime in.
Anybody else? I see Matt's raised his hand. Go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to ask for some clarity on this November 15th report due. Are we just going to give a progress report at that point, or are we going to have a goal to resolve, say, one of the 3 focus areas by then? Is there any expectation of what that report will hold?
Well, I would think that's one of the things we have to look at for a work plan. Are we gonna focus on one particular area? I think trying to address all 3 in 1 year might not work. That seems like a lot to do, especially in 5 meetings, but I mean, that's kind of up for discussion. I'll just say that, the department pushed back a little bit when this bill was going through about, staff resources. So one of the purposes for us of having 5 meetings versus another amount is just lack of staff resources, where we have a lot of stuff on our plate, including moving some pretty considerable, federal funds through our office right now. So it would be difficult for us to do more, but we could probably do 20 meetings and still not cover, all 3 of those topic areas that are in the bill. So, open to what other folks think. But I hear you, Matt. It's kind of hard to decide how many meetings we should have before we decide what we're going to cover, right?
Right.
It's kind of a chicken and an egg.
I have a question for you, Kelly. The option of hiring a consultant, is that something that the department's considering?
Yes, we actually have an RFP out right now to hire a consultant to help us and help facilitate the meetings, and particularly help with writing the report, because that's a big lift for us.
Yeah. I thought that would help if you had a consultant, if you had it in the budget to hire a consultant, that would be
We do for this year. I don't know about next year, so, but.
We'll just give you more money next year, no problem. Okay.
With respect to the number of the meetings, I know that if we take last year's study group as an example, we found that the topic was so comprehensive that it tended to take more time than what we had available, but we don't want to suffer from analysis paralysis either. So I think if we leave it at the 5, as you suggested, Kelly, with the latitude of after the summer months when people are returning back from retreats, that if we need more time in September and October, like you mentioned, maybe that's a consideration if we have that kind of, ability to ramp it up if we need to, is the only thing I would say.
Sure. And one thing that Representative Campbell had suggested that I think we did last year is when we put out the poll, we kind of had some optional dates. So we could trigger those, which we did, because like you said, we definitely wasn't enough time. So we could do that as well, like have, 5 assured dates, like these will happen, and then we could have some optional dates that we could trigger as well. So if that's something that the working group would be interested in, we could do something like that.
That sounds
Kelly,
smart to me.
Chris Campany has his hand up and Walter Adams as well.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
We're not hearing you, Chris, if you're speaking.
I think I remuted myself. I think something that might help is if it makes sense would be to maybe set specific objectives for ourselves by a certain time or by a certain meeting to try to move us along on key decision points. If we can do it, we could always slip if we need to, but try to set for ourselves, whether it's, I don't know if it would be each of the 3 items or exactly what it would look like, but if we could kind of attempt to impose a structure on it to keep us moving forward and try to resolve things as in a rational way as we move along. Just want to put that out there. And then I was about to put it in chat, but this is just procedural question. Would I, as a representative for the RPCs, or maybe occasion when I can't make it, am I allowed to have an alternate, or is it tied to me as a person?
Yes, no, you're allowed to have an alternate.
Awesome, thank you.
To respond to your first point, Chris, it seems to me that rather than limiting ourselves to one of the 3 powers and duties listed, which I think, again, are very broad, that the most productive way to look at this is to think of, I guess, first of all, what is the vision? Where are we headed? And then what is the critical path to getting there? We don't really have time to talk about that today, but that's what I was trying to get at when I was suggesting that people think about that between now and the next meeting. And I know that Kelly and Keith will be drafting a work plan, a suggested work plan that we can review and look at with an eye towards does that sort of match each of our visions about where we're going and how we're going to get there. And what I'm hoping for that we get out of this process and that is part of the report in November is some suggested concrete steps, maybe only 1 or 2 concrete steps that we can take and that might require legislative action next year. So that's how I'm viewing those questions. And I see also Mike DeRocher's got his hand up here.
Yeah, before we go to Mike, I think the more I think about it, and given that this is a 2-year working group, that it might be best to draft a work plan that addresses all 3 items without putting some kind of artificial, like, oh, we'll do this part, this year and this part next year. Like, maybe just get it fleshed out, and then we can make a decision about what would we prioritize? What do we want to make sure we fit in? Do we, again, want to focus narrowly on a couple items and really dig in, or do we want to try to address all 3? But let's get it out on paper of like the full thing and then see what people think.
Yeah.
I have
received
one.
Chris's
ahead.
comment in the chat that really that helps.
Okay,
He
so
suggests-
Walt and then Michael DeRocha, is that right, Keith?
Yep, and
Okay.
then Colin.
Okay, go ahead, Walt.
I'm assuming that you can hear me. I hope you can.
Yep.
Yes.
Good. There are a couple of things. I would agree that last year we definitely added a bunch of meetings, added in some of the optional meetings, and that most of the meetings felt like they were not long enough. So that's my comment there. My other issues are more semantics. There were a number of issues presented last year which do not appear to have ever made it into any kind of legislation or action from the state of Vermont, including some items about how to better inform the public. And I would hope that those would at least form some kind of base for this project. The second item I have is how soon will the code books be available for both RBs and CBs? I haven't seen any yet, and given that the code's going to be adopted in a couple of days, it would seem like those books should have been available a while ago. And number three, how soon and if are you going to do any web work with the web system for the new codes so that we can actually build a building in ComCheck or ResCheck and have it work? So there's my comments.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
I think we're getting into the comment period, and I want to finish this item up, and we can talk about Keith can talk about the RBs and CBs code books. We'll do an update at the end. Thank you, Walt. Michael DeRocha.
Yeah, Kelly, for the sake of time, I can hold off my comments until the next meeting, but I just wanted to, well, I guess I can throw out a couple comments. One being is that last year, in parallel with this energy efficiency study, was a housing study that I was directed to participate in. We're in a real crisis mode at fire safety to move toward adopting the 21 codes. And we are getting all geared up for this. And we are in desperate need of pushing this forward. The reason I mention this is because part of the going to the 2021 codes is, does the Division of Fire Safety adopt the IRC? The third task that is in the legislative language states, is Vermont going to adopt a statewide building code? Well, we have a building code here in Vermont that applies to everything larger than a duplex. So we use the IBC now. So the question then comes, do we adopt the IRC for 1 and 2 family dwellings? And I'm not going to debate whether you're going to extend this into single family owner occupied homes or not. I'm not going to get into that debate, but so I just want you to be aware that we are assembling a group right now to look at the IRC. That was an item that was identified in the housing study that I did last year. So if somebody here is eager to participate in a discussion about the IRC, I would just ask that you send an email to me, but I'm not trying to bypass this legislative study here that we're mandated to do. So I'm not quite sure how you might want to proceed with that, but I intend on adopting these 2021 codes hopefully by the end of this year. We're not going to wait until 2025 to push those codes through. I can't do it. There's just too much pressure on this. And secondly is the pressure that the Division of Fire Safety is under on, everybody's heard it here, affordability. So just throwing that out there, but glad to be part of this study group and so forth.
So, Michael, can I just ask a follow-up question so I'm clear? Are you saying that whether Vermont should adopt the residential building code is being discussed in a different working group or a different process, or?
Correct. That working group is being assembled now as we speak. And so I'm wondering if that somehow could be, I mean, there's a nexus here to what you're being tasked here, this group is, to what I'm being tasked to do also. So I'm kind of being pulled in two different directions here under this, under the adoption of the IRC.
Interesting.
So I don't know. So I felt like I wanted to be transparent and toss this out. And if there's thoughts on how best to move forward with that.
Could I ask, Michael, what your time frame, your timeline for discussion about the IRC? What does that look like?
I'm looking at scheduling some meetings for July, and then and then running those. I don't know how many meetings it will take to do this.
You're hoping to have something, a determination by what? By the fall or something? Or
yeah, maybe by November.
Okay.
November timeframe.
That's great to know. Okay.
So on that checklist of your 3 list, maybe this could be a spin-off of that group. But I have much different interest in that, in whether we do the IRC than what this group does. There's different landscape here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Michael, maybe you and I, maybe even a couple others like Scott, maybe we could just chat about like how, seeing how it's a clear item under this working group, but it's happening elsewhere. Like we obviously don't want to duplicate efforts, so maybe we could think a little bit more about how to best.
And I agree. And then better define what is meant by a statewide building code, because I don't know what that means.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Keith, was Colin next?
I believe so. Yep. Colin, you're up. And then Sandy, I think.
Oh, or if we're gonna get into like, if this is more public comments and not about what we're talking about right now with meetings, I'd rather wait to the end. So I'll just say that before we. Colin, is this about meetings and work plan, or do you have something else?
We're not hearing you, Colin. Looks like you're unmuted though. All right, we'll try to figure that one out. And Sandy, is your comment related to this topic or otherwise?
Can anyone hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Colin.
Sorry, from a work plan perspective, I think, Kelly, your idea earlier was good. I think we should be cognizant of trying to get anything by this November that we need legislative help for step 2. So any items that there's broad support for that don't necessarily choose the outcome, but like from our past experiences, the shall to may, or something like that, where we need a legislative step early that allows us a wider opportunity in the second year of the study. I think it would be wise to look at those things in the near term so that we could set things up for this first legislative session in preparation, even if we don't know the total outcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah,
Incidentally, the Shelter May was included in Act 151.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The Shelter May question
Oh.
about it was included in Act 151. So that's already.
Absolutely. I was just as an
Okay.
example of
Oh, I see.
something that could be something similar to that in this context, in these three questions
Sure.
that had broad support that we could initiate movement on, even if we didn't decide exactly where we were going to park at the other end.
I understand. Thank you, Colin.
Yeah, and just so folks know, that actually was the reason that the report date got moved up to November, was based on when I think bills need to be drafted, to be honest. So that's why the date got moved up. So thank you, Colin. Okay. Sandy, was your comment or question on this agenda item, or is it something else that can wait to the end, which we're getting to shortly?
Sandy's still muted, it looks like. Oh,
Sandy, do you hear us?
looks like she's trying to.
I
Oops.
guess, yeah, she's having
Yeah.
problems, it looks like.
It looks like a little like a magic school bus traveling through.
I can't see anything. I'm on the screen. Okay, well,
Can you hear
did
me
any
now?
other?
Oh, there we go.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear? Okay, sorry about that. It is about the topic. So there were, as someone said, there are many more specific recommendations in last year's report. People who were involved with the legislative process this year know that it was really lucky that we got this working group at all. And there was not a lot of room to expand or be more specific. When I talked to Representative Campbell and to Senator Bray, they said that these 3 points were not exclusive or explicit that we could add. But I think in terms of being manageable for this year, one thing to do would be to note as you go forward what ancillary things do need to go forward sooner or later. For instance, a code database. For instance, the education, as Walt mentioned. So kind of weaving those back in and prioritizing work on further items, because the explicit charge could be expanded next year. And I also want to say that there was a lot of education last year. So there was confusion in the committees about what there is an existing building code for and what there's no code for. So it was pretty clear in discussion that that item was about single family owner occupied homes. It is clear that already public service has jurisdiction over duplexes, whether or not they have an actual residential building code. So that really is not on the table for this charge should have said owner occupied single family homes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, back to the meeting schedule. One of the questions that we talked about at the beginning, right before the meeting started, Kelly and I, was asking folks whether a day of the week, keeping a day of the week is important, or should we open it up to basically a doodle poll for any day of the week over the next several months.
Right, I think I think the dates that got sent out though, Scott, weren't for like every first Friday, right? They were kind of scattered.
Yes.
And anyway, so I think it would be more like it being on the same day of the week, but not the first Friday of every month or anything like that. But yeah, we wanted to find out from the committee members if that is of import to have it on the same day, even though it wouldn't again be the first Friday or the second Friday or what have you. Or would we want to just do a doodle poll to see what dates once a month there's the most availability, regardless of what day that falls on?
I would believe that a doodle poll would be the safest, just because, especially with summer and everybody's schedule being, not consistent with everybody else's, would be a good way to start. Just to allow the greatest consensus to, to hold the meeting on that particular day.
Okay.
Does anybody want to advocate for a keeping a day of the week? In other words, whatever the meetings are, will always be on a Tuesday, or always be on a Friday, or whatever. Nobody wants to advocate for that, sounds like. Okay, that's fine. That's good to know. So I guess, Kelly, you'll put together a doodle poll then?
I will. And I don't remember, Scott. I think that list started with dates in August, if my recollection serves. So
the list that you sent around?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We had a couple dates at the end of July.
I'm gonna stop sharing because I think we're at the end of this.
Yeah, I think this was in your. I can't remember where this came from. I have July 23rd, a Tuesday, or July 26th, a Friday, as the first dates.
Okay, so I can send around the doodle poll, and I guess we could just let that speak for itself as far as when we start. If we start in July, I was thinking we were starting in August. That's why I said 5 meetings, 1 per month with 2 in October, but it's fine with me if we start in July. I think we need to, it was obviously very difficult as in the summer months to get dates that worked. I don't expect there will ever be a date that will work for absolutely everyone. I know that didn't happen last time, but I'll just put out a doodle poll then for those dates that we've circulated, and we'll see what works the best for the most members. Okay. So if there's something else, I want to open it back up. If there's,
I had one other thought that occurred to me. I think in response to Walt's comments about the legislation that was considered last year didn't seem to include many of the points that were in the report last year. I did submit a bill that reflected most of the points. There was not time to take it up. The bill went to the Environment and Energy Committee, which had lots of big stuff to do, and they didn't have time for this. I wonder if that would be useful to circulate to folks so that you could see that perhaps as a starting point.
Sure, sounds great.
All right, maybe I'll send that to Kelly and she can include that in the next email.
okay. And then to answer Walt's question about code books for RBES and CBES, I'll let Keith answer about RBES. Barry's not on, and he's working with the International Code Council on CBES. So I know that that's imminent, but I don't have an exact date. But I do really want to be clear that the requirement for the department is to publish the rule and the language in the rule. And we know that that is not the most helpful thing to follow, either the red line, which is not in the rule, actually, that's something extra we did, or the rule language, but the rule language is the only thing that we're required to do. So just that said, we do an all-in code book with the International Code Council to try to make it simpler to follow. And we're working with them as quickly as possible to get the 2 code books done. And Keith has been working really hard with our contractors to get the handbook done. It is a heavier lift this time than any other times, because as we said when we went to LCAR, given the concerns we were hearing, we were putting a whole new chapter, building science chapter, in the handbook that did not exist before. So we're writing new material to put it in the handbook, and it's just taken, frankly, way longer than what I think we anticipated, but we are getting those complementary items out as soon as possible. The two software that can be used as compliance mechanisms for residential and commercial, ResCheck and ComCheck, as Walt said, that is the Pacific National Lab controls that software, and they have to update it for us for our code language. So we are also in the process of doing that. And I don't have the date of when that will be available. As soon as possible. Hopefully they do know what our effective date is. But again, it's something that is out of our staff control. But Keith, when do you anticipate at least the electronic version of RB's handbook being on the website?
First, just to follow up on ResCheck, in the interim, the RBES goes into effect on July 1st. In the interim, you will be allowed to comply with RBES 2024 using the current version of ResCheck plus 6%. So in other words, the building would need to have a UA value that's 6% more efficient than what ResCheck spits out. So that is the option until the new software is published. The code book, we are on
the handbook.
The handbook first. The copy has been written and edited. We're trying to make it more graphic and more accessible for builders who don't necessarily like to use narrative descriptions of the code. So we've made a lot of formatting changes and tried to reduce the verbiage and increase the amount of graphic descriptions of how to meet the code. And we're adding that full chapter on building science and moisture dynamics. So it has been a heavy lift, but we are in the final phases of that. We are going to post an electronic version of the handbook as soon as that is ready and copy edited. We're in the copy editing process right now. That won't happen on July 1st, but hopefully it'll be shortly thereafter. So I will keep you updated on that. In the meantime, we have a redline version of the code on the website. I can send out that link if need be. And what was the third topic that you wanted me to follow up on?
I don't know if you have more on the residential code book, which most don't use. They use the handbook book.
Yeah, right. That's in the blue line version right now. I have not gotten that. That's the version that we send to the printer. So as soon as I get that, I will quickly turn that around, and then it's just the process at ICC of printing the books. They will post that online as soon as we've approved it. So that should be going online in view-only format shortly after the effective date.
Okay, we are over time, and I know some folks had to leave. So if people have to jump off, but I don't want to cut folks off if there's other questions. But if folks have to go, feel free. I don't think we have any other agenda items to cover. So.
Kelly, if I could ask, there was a question I was going to ask during the LCAR committee, just because I'm concerned about the liability for contractors, is the fact that when there's wording in the new RBES iteration, of course, and specifically, here's just one example where it's like electrical items. The electrical boxes from the red line version that I read last and not too long ago, and then contacting the electrical supply houses today, there's a requirement for a NEMA OS4 box and I get it, it's an air sealed box. It has rubber gaskets and a mud ring and everything else. It's going to make your building tighter so you can get to the 2 air changes per hour. That's great. When I check though for availability, first contacting several electricians that we deal with and for new builds, they're like scratching their head saying, what the heck are you talking about? So then I call the supply houses, Green Mountain Electric Supply and others. they're saying, what are you talking about? There's nothing in the code about this. Of course, they're yielding to the electrical code. When they go to the residential code, for RBs, they are oblivious to this. They don't even know that they're supposed to be carrying this. One supply house said, well, we have a handful of these, but not enough to do a whole house. And when we're trying to build 1,500 single family homes and no one has those actual materials readily available, what do we do about that? That's my big consideration, and the legality for contractors, because day one of July 1st, if they don't have those materials available and they're building their homes, what do they do? And if you're not meeting the code, it's really, the wording is the contractor is supposed to fix it at their cost. So what is the legal representation or the legal recommendation, and also liability that you guys foresee in this? Because this is a sticky issue. It's not just one, this is not the only issue, but this is one of those issues. How do we, advise people to proceed?
Well, looks like Richard Fazy just put something in the chat. Richard, do you want to speak to this? Richard's one of our contractors on the helping us with the energy code update.
Yeah, my comment was, I don't have the language up in front of me, but I did look at this before when I think you or somebody else raised it, Jim. Those boxes are specified, you're right, but only if the boxes are outside of the building air barrier. So there's no requirement for special electrical boxes if they're inside the building air barrier, is my recollection of that section of the code. So just
Okay.
a clarification there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Richard.
Yep.
Kelly, do you want to see if anyone has public comments about you with these? I mean, we can continue as long as you want, but I just wanted to see if anyone from the public has any.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I already gave that opportunity, that if anyone had anything else on the agenda items, but
I see Bill Nash has his hand up.
yeah. Bill?
Yeah, thank you, folks. Thank you for the opportunity to have a public comment. Listening to the discussion, of course, I don't have an answer for you relative to where you are with the printing or the publication of your books. That's in another group, but I certainly can get some information. If you're having issues there, I'm glad to step in. But many of you know me. I'm just I'm the government relations manager for ICC, the Code Council. All things code related, of course, and offer my resources to you all in this committee, as I've done in the past. And anybody else has any specific code related questions, I'm glad to be that resource. I do hope to attend most of your meetings, but my email is pretty relevant. I'll put it into the chat right before we leave. If anybody needs anything, I'm glad to be that resource. So just wanted to introduce and say hello and help you continue your good work.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mike, nice to see you. Nice to see you all, but Mike as well.
Are we good? I actually am late to a meeting. So if there's something else, I think we can conclude. Go ahead, Scott.
Looks like we're set. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone, for your time today.
Okay, thank you so
This is
much, everyone. I know everyone had busy schedules and some folks that said they couldn't make it squeezed it in. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Thank you.